King Charles waved from his car, but the smile couldn't hide the truth. Behind the carefully orchestrated appearances, behind the tinted windows and the polished press releases, something much heavier was unfolding. The monarch once seen as the eternal heir, now finally crowned, was quietly making a decision that would change the monarchy forever. After months of speculation and whispered concern, the truth broke through in a wave of disbelief. The king, battling a silent war against illness, had reached a breaking point. And the decision he made wasn't just about health. It was about the future of the crown itself. His cancer treatment, kept mostly from the public eye, had taken a deeper toll than anyone imagined. While the palace tried to keep up appearances, it became harder to hide the signs. Fewer public engagements, a thinner frame, a weariness in the eyes, and then cancellation after cancellation, until the whispers turned into headlines. Behind closed doors, doctors had urged him to step back, not just for a week, not for rest, but to begin a longer pause, one filled with uncertainty. The king's body could no longer bear the pressure, and neither could his spirit. It was a moment that hit like a silent thunderclap. The palace released a brief statement confirming what the public feared. King Charles would be reducing his royal duties indefinitely. But it wasn't the words on the page that stirred hearts, it was the undertone of finality. For a monarch who had waited a lifetime to ascend, this was not merely a retreat. It was an admission that something sacred was shifting. The throne, barely warmed, was already feeling the chill of vacancy. And then came the emotional moment, his announcement. Calm, composed, but impossible to ignore. The king didn't speak with royal pomp or political polish. He spoke like a man surrendering to time. He needed to focus on healing, on treatment, and on preparing for what might come next. The message was wrapped in gratitude and reassurance, but beneath it, a clear signal was sent. This wasn't just a medical timeout. This was the early sound of a crown beginning to slip. Across the nation, reactions rippled. Shock, sympathy, a quiet sense of farewell. Some wept, remembering his mother's long and steady reign. Others stood frozen, wondering what came next. And a few those closest to the royal machine already knew. This wasn't just a king stepping back. It was the monarchy beginning its slow, careful handover. And at the center of that unspoken transition, one figure was already moving forward, calmly, steadily, and without hesitation. As the king faded into the background, another presence began to rise, not with grand ceremony, but with quiet conviction. Haiti didn't ask for the spotlight, but Prince William walked into it with the poise of a man who knew his moment had arrived. In the wake of his father's quiet withdrawal, a new rhythm began pulsing through the heart of the monarchy, and at its center stood a prince who had spent his entire life preparing for a future he hoped would wait. Yet here it was, rushing toward him faster than anyone had expected. The transition wasn't formal. There was no public decree, no crown placed upon his head. But for those watching closely, the signs were undeniable. William wasn't just standing in for the king. He was stepping into something much larger. Almost overnight, his calendar transformed. Major events that once bore his father's name now listed his own. Meetings with foreign diplomats, sit-downs with prime ministers, and appearances at key institutions all bore the unmistakable presence of a leader in waiting. His arrival was measured, deliberate, never flashy. But his every move carried weight. News cameras caught him listening intently during briefings, engaging with communities, addressing national concerns not as a royal formality, but as someone taking ownership of the future. This wasn't ceremony. This was stewardship. The public noticed immediately. Whispers turned into headlines. "The new face of the monarchy," one outlet declared. "William has arrived," another read. It wasn't just about filling in. It was about standing up. And he did calmly, without ego, and with the kind of steady hand that mirrored his grandmother's grace and his mother's heart. He wasn't pretending to be anyone else. He wasn't trying to outrun the legacy of those before him. Instead, he was building something new on their shoulders, honoring the past, without being imprisoned by it. His speeches struck a different chord. Where others may have leaned into tradition or pageantry, William chose a voice that felt human, grounded. He spoke not just of duty, but of compassion, loss, service. The way he spoke of his mother, Princess Diana, wasn't scripted reverence. It was deeply personal, and it made people feel like they knew him. The British public, long skeptical of change, began to feel something rare: trust. Not the blind loyalty given to kings, but the kind earned through empathy and presence. William didn't act like a man racing toward the throne. He moved like someone preparing to carry it with both pride and pain. As days passed, his image began to dominate the front pages. He was no longer just the heir. He was the heartbeat of a monarchy trying to evolve. With Princess Kate by his side, they projected unity, modernity, and resolve. Together, they reminded a fractured nation that royalty didn't have to feel distant. It could feel real. As the media buzzed, "Is the king already here?" William said nothing. He didn't need to. His actions were louder than any title. But while his rise sparked hope and admiration, it cast a long shadow over the decision that started it all. A decision made not in glory, but in quiet heartbreak. For months, the king smiled through pain. But now, he couldn't hide it any longer. The crown he had waited his entire life to wear had grown heavier with each passing day, and behind the regal facade, a storm had been building. Whispers swirled around Buckingham Palace. The king was missing again. Another appearance cancelled. No explanation, no statement, just silence. In a world where even silence speaks volumes, the absence of Charles became louder than any official address. What began as concern turned into widespread speculation, fueled by grainy photos showing the king looking thinner, paler, and unmistakably weary. His once firm posture now seemed more fragile, and his eyes, once steady with purpose, told a different story. Something was deeply wrong. The press pressed harder, the headlines grew darker, but the palace remained mute. That silence, intended to shield, only deepened the anxiety of a nation already rattled by change. Loyal supporters clung to hope, insisting that the king was merely resting. But even they couldn't ignore the growing evidence his long-standing presence in royal life was quietly dissolving before their eyes. Each missed engagement felt less like coincidence and more like confirmation. This wasn't retreat, it was withdrawal. Then, without warning, came the truth. A video message, brief but profound, shattered the uncertainty. King Charles appeared not as a monarch, but as a man. His words were calm, his tone deliberate, but it was clear. This was not a man making a speech. This was a man facing mortality. He spoke not of reign, but of recovery, not of legacy, but of life. He revealed that the illness he had been battling was not fleeting. It was real, it was ongoing, and it demanded that he step back, not just from royal engagements, but from the role he had waited 70 years to fulfill. It was an emotional moment. This was not how it was supposed to happen. After decades of preparation, after years of waiting, in the wings, the crown had finally been his only to slip away just as quickly. The king wasn't abdicating, but in spirit, a chapter was closing. A quiet farewell echoed in his voice. A farewell to the dream of a long reign. A farewell to the throne he had so patiently pursued. He thanked the public for their loyalty, for their understanding, but above all, for their faith. And as the message ended, it wasn't just the image of a fading king that stayed with people. It was the realization that someone else had been standing strong beside him the entire time. A woman rarely seen in the spotlight, but always holding the center. Queen Camilla never wore the crown of public adoration, but in private, she held the kingdom together. While the cameras followed Charles and the headlines focused on William, it was Camilla who stood firm at the center of the storm. When her husband's health began to falter, she didn't seek sympathy or attention. She simply stayed. Day after day, conversation after conversation, she was there offering a steady hand, an honest word, and the kind of quiet courage that doesn't make front pages, but shapes the course of history behind them. Her loyalty was unwavering, and her resolve never cracked, even when the weight of the crown threatened to crush the man she loved. She became Charles's anchor when everything else felt unsteady. While others debated what should be done, Camilla listened. She knew the moments when he needed advice and the moments when he needed silence. It was Camilla who encouraged him to speak up when the world needed answers. It was Camilla who stood beside him as he made the hardest choice of his life. She didn't push him toward the spotlight, and she didn't pull him away from duty. Instead, she reminded him who he was before the title, before the pressure, before the illness. And in that reminder, Charles found the strength to step back, not as a failure, but as a man choosing wisdom over pride. But her influence didn't end with the king. As William began taking on more responsibilities, it was Camilla, unseen by the public, who helped navigate the transition. She met quietly with aides, spoke with advisors, and offered the kind of insights that only come from living inside the machinery of monarchy. Her role, once confined to ceremonial appearances, became something else entirely: strategic, thoughtful, indispensable. She didn't command rooms, but people listened. She didn't issue orders, but things moved because of her. As the kingdom slowly shifted around her, Camilla kept the internal gears turning. While Charles retreated to heal and William stepped forward into duty, she made sure the threads didn't unravel. She bridged the past with the future, offering continuity in a time when the monarchy teetered on change. Still, her name wasn't echoed in public praise. Still, her face wasn't splashed across every tabloid, because Camilla never asked for credit. She asked for stability and delivered it. But as Camilla guided the present, a powerful presence from the past began to overshadow everything. A presence the public never forgot. A legacy that refused to fade. And for Camilla, it wasn't just about supporting a king anymore. It was about surviving the echo of a queen who never was. While one queen stepped back, another quietly stepped forward, and the people noticed. As Camilla retreated into the background, doing the work without demanding the applause, Catherine, Princess of Wales, emerged with a presence too powerful to ignore. Without raising her voice or chasing the cameras, Kate became the center of attention. Not just because of duty, but because of how naturally she embodied it. Each public appearance was met with warmth, not obligation. Each gesture felt sincere, not scripted. The crowds who once watched from a distance now leaned in. Something was shifting, and Kate was at the heart of it. People didn't just see a royal figure, they saw something familiar. The calm in her eyes, the kindness in her touch, the effortless way she engaged with children, the elderly, and those in need, it all felt like a mirror to someone they'd loved before. Princess Diana's name returned to the conversation, not out of nostalgia, but through Kate's reflection of her spirit. There was elegance, yes, but it was empathy that struck the deepest chord. The way she connected without pretense, the way she made royalty feel human again, was something the monarchy had lost and desperately needed back. And while Kate's star rose, comparisons became impossible to ignore. Her grace under pressure stood in stark contrast to Camilla's long, turbulent journey into the royal family. Camilla, still navigating the lingering discomfort of public perception, watched as the younger woman earned affection she had spent years fighting for. The very crowds that once jeered Camilla now erupted in cheers for Kate. And no matter how gracious Camilla tried to be, the contrast was painful and undeniable. Royal watchers began to speculate. Was there tension? Did Camilla see Kate as a threat? The monarchy had always been careful to present unity, but behind the palace walls, subtle signs told a different story. Kate's presence at major events increased, her visibility amplified, and her voice grew stronger. As the public leaned in, so did the press. "Kate is the future," some declared. "The queen we didn't know we needed." Social media exploded with admiration. Every outfit, every cause, every appearance went viral. And with each passing day, she became more than a royal consort. She became a symbol of hope, of modernity, of continuity. But admiration doesn't come without consequence. As Kate was lifted higher, the shadow she cast grew longer, and Camilla stood within it. The monarchy had weathered scandal, division, and loss. But now it faced something far more delicate. A quiet competition, unspoken but felt. A passing of the torch not through ceremony, but through sentiment. And as admiration for Kate grows, whispers behind palace walls grow louder. And not everyone is pleased. Between two powerful women, the king finds himself caught in a storm. Only he can calm. On one side, the loyal companion who stood by him through decades of scandal and sacrifice. On the other, the woman now hailed by the public as the soul of the monarchy's future. For King Charles, this isn't just a matter of managing a royal household, it's a test of emotional endurance, political instinct, and personal reckoning. The tightrope he walks isn't visible to the world, but every step is a gamble with the institution's survival. He knows too well that one misstep could fracture the fragile unity holding the royal family together. So he does what kings must. He crafts the illusion of harmony. He stages appearances where Camilla and Kate stand side by side, smiling just enough, nodding at just the right moments. Every joint event is a performance choreographed to protect the monarchy from suspicion. But behind those polished optics lies a deeper calculation. Charles understands that Kate's popularity is more than a passing trend, it's a tidal shift. And quietly, he leans into it. Key engagements, state responsibilities, symbolic gestures of leadership all begin to fall to William and Kate. It's not a betrayal, it's survival. He knows the public has chosen their future queen in spirit, long before any formal title will declare it. Yet the cost of this balance grows heavier by the day. As Kate ascends, so does the memory of Diana, the woman whose shadow never left him. Her image is resurrected in Kate's grace, her compassion, her quiet strength. And for Charles, it reopens wounds that never fully healed. The press begins to draw lines between past and present, between the woman he once loved and lost, and the woman now rising with dignity and public devotion. Privately, he wrestles with it all. The regret of choices made, the weight of a marriage that once divided the country, the fear that history is not just repeating, but rewriting his legacy in the process. And yet, through it all, Charles does not crumble. He reflects. He reassesses. And above all, he remains focused on one thing: preserving the monarchy for a generation that increasingly questions its place. He believes in the institution, even as it evolves beyond his control. And so, he carries both grief and gratitude in the same breath. He does not envy Kate's light, but he knows he must make space for it. Because the future of the crown will not be carried by tradition alone. It will be carried by trust. And just as he tries to hold everything together, new forces stir within the family ones that could fracture it even more. As the royal spotlight moves, one familiar name echoes in the background: Prince Harry. His absence is impossible to ignore, yet his presence lingers in every conversation, every headline, every whispered "what if?" While his brother shoulders the crown's growing weight and his father confronts his own mortality, Harry remains thousands of miles away, in a different world, with a different mission. But no matter how far he's gone, he hasn't disappeared. The public hasn't let him go. Not entirely. Because no matter how fractured the bond, Harry is still a son, a brother, and a prince. And in moments of crisis, the question always comes back to him: will he return? Speculation has surged as King Charles's health casts a shadow over the monarchy. The idea of Harry stepping back into the fold, even temporarily, has ignited debate across the world. Some see it as an opportunity for healing, a chance to put family above friction. Others view it as an impossible dream, too damaged by years of public spats and private pain. But the tension lies in the unknown. Harry's silence on the matter speaks louder than any tabloid. His exile may be self-imposed, but the door has never fully closed. And now, with the throne beginning to shift, people are watching for any sign that he might once again cross that threshold. In his absence, the monarchy has reshaped itself leaner, quieter, more focused on the few who remain within its walls. Harry's place has been left vacant, but never erased. His titles may be stripped, his duties reassigned, but the emotional thread remains. And threads like that don't simply snap. They fray, they tangle, and sometimes they pull you back. The possibility of reconciliation still hovers in the air, delicate and dangerous. The past cannot be undone, but the future, that remains unwritten. And something tells us it may call him back sooner than we think. But while the present unfolds and old wounds reopen, the next generation quietly watches and learns. They're still children, but the future of the monarchy is already in motion. While the world watches the present shift, young eyes are quietly observing everything. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis have not been shielded from the weight of change. They have seen their grandfather's strength fade, witnessed their father step into a role he didn't ask for so soon, and watched their mother transform into a symbol of grace under pressure. They may not understand every headline, every photograph, every whisper behind palace doors, but they feel it. They know that something profound is happening, and one day, the responsibility will be theirs. Behind palace gates, William and Kate are doing more than just preparing themselves. They are preparing their children, not through strict instruction or royal decree, but through example, quietly, intentionally, in the way they carry duty with dignity, in the way they serve with humility, in the way they remain human beneath the titles. The children are growing up not in the shadow of the past, but in the light of what's possible. And, in that light, the foundation of a new era is taking shape, one that blends ancient tradition with the undeniable push of modern values. What once seemed untouchable, rigid, cold, unreachable, is being reshaped into something warmer, more familiar. This monarchy doesn't speak from a distant throne. It kneels beside hospital beds. It walks into classrooms. It listens at food banks. The crown is no longer just a symbol of power. It's a platform of service. And though skeptics remain, a quiet transformation is unfolding. Bit by bit, trust is being rebuilt. Not through spectacle, but through sincerity. Not with grandeur, but with grounded truth. The public, weary from scandal and silence, is beginning to believe again, not because they're told to, but because they want to. This isn't the end of the monarchy, it's a recalibration, a renewal. One that doesn't erase the past, but learns from it. One that carries forward the best of what came before, while letting go of what no longer belongs. Charles's quiet retreat wasn't just a personal decision, it was a signal. That the crown is more than one man. That legacy isn't about clinging, it's about knowing when to let go. And William, with Kate at his side, is answering that call not with ambition, but with resolve. Calm, measured, unshaken. And as their children grow watching, learning, becoming, the cycle begins anew. A new generation destined to inherit a crown, far different from the one their grandfather wore. And still, the world watches, wondering, hoping. Because as one era ends, the world holds its breath for what's next. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one.